Hi, I'm Emily, 32 years old. My family has run a renowned handmade furniture brand for generations. It's not just a business. It's a legacy carved from the sweat and tears of my ancestors. Growing up, my parents drilled into my brother Jason and me that the company wasn't just about money. It was our family's honor, our pride, the heartbeat of who we are. I'd built my own life away from it, but that connection never faded. Last month, everything changed. The company hit a brutal financial crisis. Sales tanked, and bankruptcy loomed like a storm cloud. I couldn't just watch it fall apart, so I dropped everything, left my job, and came back to fight for it. But nothing prepared me for what I'd find. A shocking truth that turned my world upside down. It's a tale of loyalty, betrayal, and digging deep to save what matters. If this story hits home for you, please like, share, and drop a comment letting me know where you're tuning in from. I don't think I'll ever forget what it felt like to grow up as Jason's little sister. He's 2 years older than me, and to my parents, he was everything. The golden boy. Smart, talented, the kind of kid who could charm anyone with a grin. Meanwhile, I was just me. Trying to keep up, always a step behind, always in his shadow. It started early. I'd be playing with my dolls, and Jason would come home with some perfect report card. Mom would hug him tight, saying, "You're our pride and joy, Jason." Dad would nod, adding, "He's got the brains to take over one day." I'd sit there quiet, wondering if they'd ever say something like that about me. Don't get me wrong, I adored Jason. He was my big brother, my hero. But it hurt, that feeling of being less. As we got older, it only got worse. Jason was the star. Football captain, honor roll, you name it. I wasn't bad myself, but my wins felt small next to his. A good job for me was nothing compared to the parades they threw for him. And Jason? He soaked it up. I could see it in his eyes sometimes. This quiet arrogance, like he knew he was the favorite and I'd never catch up. The breaking point came on my 18th birthday. Jason had gotten a shiny new car for his 18th. Red, sleek, the works. So I'd been dropping hints for months, dreaming of my own little escape. When the day came, I held my breath as Dad handed me a box. I opened it, and there was a watch. A nice one, sure, but just a watch. "Girls don't need fancy cars," he said, laughing like it was nothing. Jason smirked, jangling his keys. I forced a smile, said thank you, but that night, I locked myself in my room and cried. It wasn't about the car, it was the message. I wasn't worth as much. Those little hurts piled up over the years, like bruises you don't notice until they turn black. But I swallowed it all. Family's everything, I'd tell myself. I couldn't let resentment win. So I kept loving them, Jason included, even when it stung. After college, I left. I had to. I needed to prove I was more than the spare kid. And I did. I built something for myself, far away from that shadow. But when Dad called, saying the business was sinking, I didn't think twice. I came back. Family's still family, right? No matter how deep the scars, what I didn't know was how much deeper they'd get. When I stepped back into the company, everything felt like it used to. The sound of machines buzzing from the workshop below, the faint smell of polished wood, the old photos of our grandparents on the walls. It was like a slow rewind of a movie. For that first moment, I thought, maybe things could be okay. Maybe I could fix the cracks, bring some hope back to the place my family had poured their hearts into. But that feeling didn't stick around. A few days in, I started noticing things that didn't sit right. The financial reports weren't what I remembered. Numbers that should have been clear were a tangled mess. There were big chunks of money gone, with nothing but vague notes like miscellaneous costs or vendor payments that didn't match any invoices. At first, I blamed the crisis, but then I saw it wasn't that simple. I asked the staff, but they just shrugged. "Ask Jason, he handles it," they'd say. So I started watching him. Jason, my brother, the one I'd always looked up to, felt distant now, guarded. He'd stay late, locked in meetings with the chief accountant. Whenever I passed by, they'd go quiet, like I'd walked in on something I wasn't meant to see. When I pressed him about the money, he'd flash a smile that didn't reach his eyes and say, "Don't worry, Em. I've got it covered." But I couldn't stop worrying. Something felt off, like a nagging itch I couldn't scratch. Then one night, I stayed late, determined to figure it out. As I dug through papers, I heard Jason's rushed footsteps. He grabbed his coat, mumbled something about a meeting, and bolted. And there, on his desk, I saw it. A tiny USB drive, left behind like it didn't matter. I knew I shouldn't have touched it. But my hands were trembling as I plugged it into my laptop. What I saw hit me like a punch. Hundreds of files. Fake invoices, forged transfer contracts, accounts I'd never heard of. It was a whole web of lies, and Jason was at the heart of it. My brother, the one I'd trusted, was stealing from our family. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling the ground split open beneath me. How could he? After all our parents gave up, after all the times I'd swallowed my pain to keep things civil. I wanted to scream, to storm out and confront him right then, but I couldn't move. The shock froze me. Betrayal doesn't just hurt, it carves you hollow. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay there, replaying every lie, every dodged glance he'd given me. And the worst part? I knew this was just the start. The next morning, I couldn't wait any longer. My hands were shaking as I held the USB with all the evidence, like it was a bomb about to explode. I marched straight to Jason's office, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst out of my chest. I had to confront him, had to make him explain why he'd betray our family like this. I didn't bother knocking, just shoved the door open. Jason looked up startled, but when he saw the USB in my hand, his face went pale. For a split second, I saw panic in his eyes, like a kid caught stealing. But then, in a flash, he composed himself. He leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and gave me a cold smile. "So you found it," he said, his voice flat. "Took you long enough, huh?" I was stunned. No denial, no excuses, just this brazen attitude. "Jason, how could you do this? This is our family's company, our parents' life's work. You're stealing from us." He stood up, towering over me, and sneered. "You think you're so smart, Emily? Always trying to one-up me, always playing the victim. But guess what? Mom and Dad will never believe you. You've been jealous of me since we were kids. They know it. I know it. Now you're making up stories to bring me down?" It felt like a punch to the gut. Jealous? This isn't about that. Look at this. Fake invoices, secret accounts. You're lying to everyone. Jason stepped closer, his eyes narrowing, his voice low and sharp. "And you think they'll believe you over me? The golden child versus the spare? Come on, Em, don't be naive." I wanted to scream, to slap him, but his words cut deep. All these years, I'd been in his shadow, always second to his brilliance. What if he was right? What if they didn't believe me? But I couldn't back down. "I'll tell them tonight," I said through gritted teeth. He smirked, like he already knew he'd win. "Go ahead and try." That night, I was ready to spill everything. But Jason beat me to it. He called an emergency family meeting, Mom, Dad, aunts, uncles, everyone crammed into the living room, the air thick with tension. I sat there, clutching the USB, waiting for my chance. Then Jason stood up, and what he did next, I'll never forget. He started crying. Big, loud sobs, his shoulders shaking, like he was the one who'd been wronged. I didn't want to believe it, he choked out. But Emily, she's been embezzling from the company. I found proof, fake receipts, shady transactions. She's blaming me because she's always resented me for running things. I was frozen. What? You're lying. But no one looked at me. Mom buried her face in her hands, sobbing. Dad's face turned red, his fists clenched. Emily, is this true? He barked. No, Dad, it's not. Jason's the one. Enough, Jason shouted, his voice breaking. Stop lying. You've always been jealous, always trying to sabotage me. But stealing from the family? That's sick. I looked around, desperate for someone to believe me, but all I saw was disappointment, anger, distance. Aunt Lisa shook her head, whispering, How could you, Emily? Uncle Mark wouldn't even meet my eyes. Mom, please, I begged. Look at the USB. The truth is on there. Jason's the one. But Mom cut me off, crying harder. Why would you do this to us? To your brother? I felt like I was drowning. My head spun, my chest tight, like I couldn't breathe. In minutes, I'd gone from the one trying to save the family to the villain. Jason had flipped the script, and I was the bad guy. That night, I was alone. No one would listen. No one would look at me. I'd lost everything. Trust, love, all of it. And Jason? He won, like always. But I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. I couldn't let it end like that. Not after everything I'd been through. The sting of my family's rejection, Mom's tears, Dad's cold silence, Jason's smug grin. It was too much. They thought I'd stolen from the company, from them, and no one would listen when I swore I was innocent. But I wasn't going to roll over and take it. Jason might have fooled them, but not me. I knew he was behind it, and I was going to prove it, even if it killed me. That night, alone in my apartment, I called Mark. He's an old college friend, a financial investigator who's always been sharper than a tack. My hands shook as I dialed, but my voice didn't waver. Mark, I need you. My brother's screwing me over, embezzling from our family's company and pinning it on me. Can you help? He didn't even pause. Send me what you've got. We'll figure it out. For 2 weeks, we worked in the shadows. I'd sneak into the office after hours, heart pounding, flipping through files, snapping pictures of anything that looked shady. Jason's signature on weird transfers, invoices that didn't add up. I sent it all to Mark. He'd call me late at night, piecing it together, following the money. It was nerve-wracking. Every creak of the building made me jump, thinking Jason might walk in and catch me. But he didn't. He was too busy playing the wounded hero to notice. Then, one rainy night, Mark called, his voice tense. Emily, I've got it. A recording. Jason and the chief accountant, caught red-handed. He'd pulled some tech magic, don't ask me how, and gotten into Jason's phone. I sat in my car outside the office, rain drumming on the roof, and listened. Jason's voice came through calm and cocky. Make sure the transfers look clean. If anyone asks, it's vendor payments. The accountant sounded jittery. What if Emily keeps digging? Jason laughed. She's done. No one's buying her story. I wanted to scream. My own brother, plotting against me like I was nothing. But that anger turned into fuel. That recording was my lifeline, my proof. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't the villain. I didn't wait long to act. I called another family meeting, but this time I wasn't going in alone. I asked Mr. Thompson, our family lawyer, to be there. He's known us forever, and I trusted him to keep things fair. When everyone showed up, Mom, Dad, the aunts, and uncles, Jason, I felt sick with nerves, but I stood tall. "I've got something you need to hear," I said, pulling out my phone. Jason smirked, crossing his arms. "What's this, Emily? Another sob story?" I hit play. The room went still as Jason's voice spilled out, admitting it all, the theft, the setup, the lies. You could have heard a pin drop. When it finished, Mom started trembling, her hand over her mouth, tears spilling over. Dad's face crumpled, like he couldn't believe what he'd heard. Jason just sat there, staring at the floor. Dad finally spoke, his voice breaking. "Jason, how could you do this to us? To your own sister?" Jason didn't answer. He just grabbed his coat and walked out, leaving us in the wreckage of his mess. After that, everything unraveled fast. Jason was forced out of the company, and the police got involved. He'd face charges, no doubt about it. But the real damage? That was to us. Mom sobbed for days, saying she should have seen it, should have trusted me. Dad barely spoke, like he was ashamed he'd doubted me. The rest of the family was a mix of guilt and fury, whispering about how they'd been so wrong. Me? I felt hollow. Yeah, I'd cleared my name, but at what cost? My brother, the one I'd grown up with, fought with, loved even when he drove me nuts, had ripped us apart. The truth didn't fix that. It just left scars. Still, I couldn't give up. For Mom, for Dad, for the company we'd built, I had to keep going. Maybe we'd heal someday. Maybe. After Jason walked out that door, the house felt like a hollow shell. The truth was finally out. Those recordings I'd fought so hard to get had exposed him for the liar he was. But even with that weight off my chest, I didn't feel free. I felt broken. My own family had chosen him over me, believed his charm over my warnings, and that cut deeper than I could have imagined. I'd spent my whole life trying to prove I was enough, and when it mattered most, they'd turned their backs. Relief mixed with anger, sadness, betrayal. It was a mess I couldn't untangle alone. I didn't know where to start fixing myself. Nights were the worst. Lying awake, hearing Jason's voice on that tape, seeing Mom's face fall, Dad's silence. A friend saw me unraveling and said, "Emily, you need to talk to someone. A therapist, maybe?" I brushed it off at first. Me spilling my guts to a stranger? But the idea stuck. I found Dr. Sarah online, a therapist who dealt with family stuff, and booked a session. That first day, I just sat there, staring at her bookshelf until she asked, "What hurts the most?" I didn't expect the flood that came out. Years of being second to Jason, the sting of being doubted, the loneliness. I cried until my throat hurt, but it was like letting poison out. Therapy didn't magically fix me, but it gave me a lifeline. Home was still a minefield. Mom and Dad tiptoed around me, their guilt hanging heavy. One night they asked me to sit down. Mom's voice shook as she said, "Emily, we were wrong. We trusted Jason because it was easier, and we hurt you. I'm so sorry." Dad looked at the floor, then added, "We didn't see how unfair we'd been. You deserved better." Hearing that cracked something open in me, not because it erased the pain, but because they finally saw it. I nodded, tears falling, and whispered, "Thank you." It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was a door opening. Dr. Sarah suggested family counseling, and I braced myself for them to say no. But they didn't. Our first session was rough. 4 of us in a circle, the air thick with tension. The therapist asked, "What do you wish they knew?" I went last, voice trembling. I just wanted to matter as much as Jason did. Mom broke down, Dad gripped his chair, and my sister fidgeted. It was messy, weeks of sessions, tears, yelling sometimes, but we kept showing up. We started talking about the favoritism, the resentment, the silence we'd all lived with. It wasn't pretty, but it was real. Meanwhile, I dove into the business. It was a wreck after Jason's mess. Clients gone, trust shattered. I fired the shady accountant, brought in a new team, and made everything transparent. Every deal, every dollar. I worked late, double-checking numbers, rebuilding what he'd torn down. It paid off. 6 months in, we signed a big contract with a hotel chain. I stood in the office that day, watching my team cheer and thought, this is mine now. We weren't just back, we were better. We're still figuring it out. Some days I wake up angry. Others, I see Mom try harder, Dad listen more. The wounds Jason left won't vanish overnight, and neither will ours. But we're moving forward, together. Therapy's teaching me to let go, bit by bit, and counseling's showing us how to rebuild. The business is solid, and for the first time, I feel like I'm enough. It's not perfect, but it's ours, and that's something worth holding on to. Betrayal from the people you love isn't just a sting, it's a wound that keeps bleeding. When I found out Jason, my big brother, had siphoned money from our family's hardware store and pointed the finger at me, it felt like the ground caved in. Part 6 was me storming into his apartment, receipts in hand, demanding answers. He didn't even deny it, just stared at me, cold, like I was the one who'd crossed a line. Mom and Dad took his side too because Jason wouldn't do that. Except he did. And I was left holding the shards of a trust I didn't know could break. The weeks after that were a blur of hurt and hard truths. I'd spent my life looking up to him, his confidence, his charm, and now all I could see was the lie he'd built. Honesty became my lifeline. I stopped pretending everything was fine, stopped smoothing over the cracks to keep everyone comfortable. I told Mom and Dad how it felt to be thrown under the bus, how their silence cut deeper than Jason's betrayal. They listened, but I don't know if they heard me. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't fix everything, but it forces you to face what's real. It took guts to keep going after that. Courage isn't loud for me. It's quiet, stubborn, like walking into work every day knowing half the staff still whispered I'd been the thief. I proved them wrong with every invoice I triple-checked, every late night I spent rebuilding what Jason tore down. But forgiveness? That's a beast I'm still wrestling. Some days, I think I could sit across from him, hear him out, maybe let it go. Other days, I'd rather burn that bridge and watch it ash. I'm learning it's not a straight line. Forgiveness is a choice I keep making, unmaking, remaking. I don't know what's next. I'm still running the store, still figuring out if trust can grow back once it's been ripped out by the roots. Jason's out there, living his life, and I wonder if he ever feels the weight of what he did. I hope he does. I hope I'll find peace either way. What about you? Have you ever been blindsided by someone you'd have staked your life on? If my story stirs something in you, I'd love to know. Hit that like button, share it with someone who gets it, and drop a comment telling me where you're reading from. You're not alone in this, I promise.